It started with a phone call. Julian had been working late again. Spreadsheets, numbers, the kind of corporate stuff that dulled the edges of his once adventurous spirit. He was sipping cold coffee when his phone rang. "Uncle Julian," the voice said, hesitant but familiar. It was Leah, his niece. "I need your help. Can I stay at your place for a while? Just a few days, please." She didn't elaborate, but something in her voice unsettled him. That night, Leah arrived with just one suitcase and a pale face. Her eyes, once full of spark, now held shadows. Julian offered her the guest room upstairs, the one that hadn't been touched in years, except for the towering old wardrobe that still stood against the far wall. Julian didn't give much thought to the wardrobe. It had belonged to his grandmother and had survived several moves over the decades. Heavy oak, carved edges, a faint lavender scent still clinging to the inside. When he was a kid, he used to hide in it during hide-and-seek games. It creaked when opened, and the doors never stayed shut unless latched from outside. On her second night, Leah mentioned something strange. "I heard whispers last night from the wardrobe." She was dead serious. Julian laughed at first. "It's probably the old wood shifting or your imagination running wild." But that night, long after they'd gone to bed, Julian passed her room and heard it too. A soft thump. Then, a whisper. A dry, papery voice saying something he couldn't quite make out. Leah's behavior changed over the next few days. She was pale, tired, and sometimes stood for minutes just staring at the wardrobe. She began sleeping with the lights on. One morning, Julian found her crying in the kitchen. "I saw someone in the mirror," she whispered, "but when I turned around, no one was there." Julian decided to examine the wardrobe himself. He opened it wide, nothing but a few mothballs and the lingering lavender scent. But when he reached to touch the back panel, his hand slipped through, just for a second. It was like reaching through smoke, cold, breathless smoke. He didn't tell Leah. Not yet. Instead, Julian started researching the wardrobe. He found an old photo tucked behind one of the top drawers. A family photo with a date, 1949. In the corner stood the same wardrobe, except the faces of the people around it were scratched out, every single one. He visited an antique appraiser. The man grew pale when he saw the photo. "Where did you say this was?" he asked. Julian told him. The man shook his head slowly. "That's not just a wardrobe. Some called it the hollow one. Said it takes more than it gives back. You're not the first. Get rid of it. Burn it if you can." That night, Leah screamed. Julian rushed upstairs. She was sitting in the corner of the room, shaking, her eyes locked on the open wardrobe. "He came out," she whispered. "He touched my hand. He said my name." Julian looked inside again. Still nothing, but now the inside was colder than before. The wood looked darker, as if rotting from within, and on the inside panel was a handprint, small, childlike, pressed into the wood like a burn. Julian decided to take Leah away for the weekend, just to get her out of the house. But the morning they were supposed to leave, she was gone, her bed untouched, her suitcase still there. The only thing missing was Leah, and the wardrobe door was open, swinging slightly. He screamed her name, tore through the house, called the police. They searched every room, every crawl space, even the woods nearby. Nothing, no trace. But Julian knew. He knew where she went. He waited until dark, then opened the wardrobe himself. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped inside. At first it was just wood. Then he felt the cold again. The smoke. Something pulled at his chest. Memories. Grief. fear. And then he saw them. Faces. Dozens. Pressed against the inside of the wood. Eyes wide, mouths agape. And Leah, she was there too. Crying, reaching, but no sound came out. He tried to reach her. The smoke thickened. Something took hold of his arm. Cold, writhing. It whispered in his ear, "You came too late." Julian was found the next morning, unconscious on the floor of the guest room. The wardrobe was sealed shut, and no matter how hard anyone pulled, it wouldn't open. Leah was never found. Julian never spoke of that night. He moved out within the week. The house was sold to a developer who planned to tear it down. But the wardrobe, it disappeared. One day it was there, the next it was gone. And sometimes, in antique stores across the country, people whisper about a certain oak wardrobe. Heavy, carved edges, and a faint scent of lavender. It started with a phone call that felt like it shouldn't have reached me. A woman named Lillian had passed away in her sleep. No foul play, no signs of a struggle. Peaceful, they said. She had been renting a small room above a hardware store in a forgotten corner of town, room 313. The landlord, a tired man with trembling hands, said she had no family, no next of kin. Among her few belongings was my name scribbled on an old envelope. I hadn't seen Lillian in over 20 years. We were close once, long before life happened. Curious more than grieving, I agreed to collect what was left. The room was cramped, musty, and smelled faintly of lavender and old wood. The only things left were a few books, a cracked mirror, a small writing desk, and a large antique wardrobe, the kind with heavy doors and a brass keyhole that seemed to stare back. Something about it immediately felt wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew it didn't belong there. The landlord stood awkwardly in the doorway. "She used to talk to it sometimes," he said quietly. "Said it kept her company at night. I figured she was just lonely." His eyes lingered on the wardrobe before he quickly turned away. I asked if he knew where it came from. He shook his head, muttered something about it always being in the room, even before Lillian. I stared at it for a long time. There was no reflection in its surface, yet I swore I could see movement within its wood grain. I took a deep breath, gripped the handle, and opened the doors. Empty. Just a faint, cold air brushing past me. I told myself it was just old furniture creaking, the air inside denser from years of being closed. But something made me uneasy, like I had just disturbed something asleep. That night I stayed in the room. I wanted to understand why Lillian, a woman once vibrant and full of life, would choose this place to spend her final years. I laid on the creaky bed, staring at the ceiling, but my eyes always returned to the wardrobe. Around midnight, I heard it, a soft knock. From inside the wardrobe, I froze, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. Then, silence. I waited, ears straining, heart pounding. Another knock, slower, deliberate. I jumped up, grabbed the desk lamp and flung the wardrobe doors open. Still empty, but this time the cold was stronger and the scent of lavender had vanished. I barely slept. The next morning, I called a local antique dealer. He came that afternoon, a wiry man in his 60s with round glasses. As soon as he saw the wardrobe, he paused. "That's not a local piece," he murmured. "French, maybe. Late 1800s. These carvings, they tell stories. See this? It's a face. Several of them. hidden in the grain. I leaned closer and saw it. Faces, twisted, contorted, buried in the swirls of wood. The more I stared, the more I saw. Fear, agony, mouths wide open, screaming. I pulled back. The dealer nodded grimly. Some say these wardrobes were used in rituals. Storage, yes, but not for clothes. I laughed nervously. What then? He looked me dead in the eyes. To contain things. Evil things. That night I locked the wardrobe with a chair propped against the handles. I even whispered aloud, just in case, before lying down. But sleep didn't come. Around 2 a.m, the chair scraped across the floor on its own. I sat up, cold sweat dripping down my back. The wardrobe doors creaked. No wind, no vibration, just the steady groan of old wood opening. I wanted to run, but my legs refused. A low, whispering sound came from within. Words I couldn't understand, but my body recoiled instinctively. It felt like dozens of voices murmuring through the centuries, all speaking at once. I shouted, slammed the doors shut, and bolted from the room. I returned the next day with a priest. I didn't even believe in that sort of thing, but desperation overrode skepticism. He blessed the room, muttered prayers, sprinkled holy water on the wardrobe. The wood hissed, not creaked, hissed, like something inside didn't want to be touched. The priest turned pale. "Burn it," he whispered. "Don't sell it. Don't give it away. It has a hold on this place." But the landlord refused. He said it was part of the furnishings. "You want it gone? Take it with you," he said. So I did. I loaded the wardrobe into my truck and drove it to my storage unit miles out of town. I never went back to room 313, but the dreams started. Dark corridors, Lillian calling my name, a door slowly creaking open. Cold breath on my neck as I slept. I began waking with scratches along my arms and neck. My cat hissed at the storage key whenever I picked it up. I started avoiding it, pushing it to the back of a drawer. One night, I woke up to find the wardrobe in my bedroom, not the storage unit, my bedroom. It stood silently at the foot of my bed, doors shut tight. My scream echoed through the house. Lights flicked on. I blinked. It was gone. But the next morning, the smell of lavender filled the air. I tried to get rid of it. Drove back to the unit, opened the door, ready to burn it. But the wardrobe was open. Inside, a mirror. One I swear was never there. I saw myself, but not quite. My reflection blinked when I didn't, tilted its head when I stood still. My stomach turned, then it smiled. I shut the doors and ran, but it was too late. The dreams worsened. The reflection followed. I started seeing it in windows, screens, even puddles. Always a step behind, watching, smiling. I haven't slept in days. And now I'm recording this for whoever finds it. The wardrobe's still in my unit, locked, chained, but I hear it whispering my name. Please, don't open it. If I hadn't agreed to house sit for my aunt that summer, I never would have heard the whispers coming from inside the wardrobe. It was late June when she called me, a spur-of-the-moment vacation with her new boyfriend, leaving her quiet countryside cottage unattended. I was between jobs, bored, and too polite to say no, so I packed a small bag and drove the 2.5 hours out of the city. not knowing I was walking into something I'd never be able to forget. From the outside, the cottage looked charming. Stone walls, ivy creeping along the roofline, a large oak tree that shaded the front porch. Inside, it smelled of lavender and old wood. Quaint, peaceful, too peaceful. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I noticed the wardrobe in the guest bedroom. It was old, antique, maybe Victorian, with intricate carvings on the doors. Oddly, it had a keyhole, but no key in sight. Something about it immediately unsettled me. Maybe it was how the shadows seemed thicker around it, or how the room felt colder the closer I got. I brushed it off. Old houses creak, and old furniture holds stories. That's what I told myself. But at 3:12 a.m., I woke up to a sound I couldn't explain, like a breath exhaled slowly from inside the wardrobe. The sound wasn't loud, but it was distinct. A slow, deliberate exhale, followed by silence. I froze in bed, my heart thudding like a drum in my chest. "You're imagining it," I whispered to myself, but the air felt heavier, and I could feel the fine hairs on my arms standing up. I waited, holding my breath, listening. Nothing. I eventually drifted back to sleep, convincing myself it had been part of a dream. The next morning, I laughed it off, but that laugh died in my throat when I noticed something. The wardrobe door was slightly ajar. I was certain I'd seen it closed the night before. I walked over, hesitant, and nudged it open with one finger. The inside was empty. No clothes, no hangers, just the faint smell of old cedar and something else. Something sour. I shut the door quickly and decided not to overthink it. Maybe it drifted open on its own. Wood warps, hinges loosen. I didn't want to seem like a child afraid of furniture. By the third night, the noises weren't just whispers. I began hearing scratching. Faint, like fingernails dragging lightly against wood, rhythmic and deliberate. Always around 3 a.m., my sleep grew restless. Every sound in the house began to make me jump. The light creak of the hallway floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator. Everything felt too loud, too alive. I started sleeping with a flashlight beside me. One night, when the scratching grew too persistent, I snapped. I grabbed the flashlight, walked up to the wardrobe and yanked it open. Nothing. Again. Empty. But then saw something new. Thin scratch marks along the inside of the door. 4 lines, evenly spaced, like fingers. My stomach turned. What the hell? I backed away slowly and didn't sleep the rest of the night. I called my aunt the next morning. Trying to sound casual, I asked her about the wardrobe, where she got it, if she'd ever heard anything strange. Her response chilled me. "Oh, that old thing. It came with the house. I've always meant to get rid of it." "Why?" I lied, told her it just made weird noises. She laughed it off. That night, I placed a chair in front of the wardrobe, wedging it shut. I needed to prove to myself that it wasn't opening, but when I woke up the next morning, the chair was toppled over and the door was open again, wider this time. My throat tightened. I checked the floor. No signs of footprints, no forced entry. I even sprinkled flour in front of it that night. When I woke up, the flour was disturbed, ushumiz, smeared, like something had been dragged. I left the house that day and spent hours in town, just to be away. One evening, I met an old man at the town's general store. We struck up a conversation, and when I mentioned my aunt's place, his expression darkened. "The one with the old wardrobe in the guest room?" he asked. I nodded, surprised. He leaned in and said, "You should tell her to burn it. Years ago, someone lived there. A recluse named Esther. They say she used to trap birds and animals in that wardrobe. Said they whispered secrets to her." I stared at him, waiting for a laugh, but his eyes were grave. "What happened to her?" I asked. He shook his head. "Disappeared. They found the wardrobe locked from the inside. Took 3 men to break it open. Empty, except for claw marks. Deep ones." I didn't want to go back, but I couldn't leave without understanding what was happening. That night, I set up my phone to record video, facing the wardrobe. I hit record at midnight and stayed awake, staring at the screen. For hours, nothing happened. I drifted off sometime around 4 a.m. When I checked the footage the next morning, I expected the usual, creaking, maybe the door shifting. What I saw made me drop the phone. At 3:14 a.m., the wardrobe door opened slowly on its own, and then, unmistakably, a pale hand reached out, long fingers pressing against the floor, pulling something unseen from the shadows. The figure never fully emerged, just the hand, and then it retracted, and the door closed, all by itself. I packed my bags that minute. I didn't care about finishing the house sitting. I left a note for my aunt and drove, shaking, heart pounding, not stopping until I reached the city. I haven't been back since. Weeks later, my aunt called me, laughing nervously. "I think there's something wrong with that wardrobe," she said. "It's open every morning, no matter how I shut it." And last night, I heard something breathing. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to warn her, to beg her to get rid of it. But part of me knew it was too late. Once it whispers to you, it doesn't stop.